Okay, Sunday Kailul, it is the week of Hanukkah, and we have something special for today. I would begin by wishing all of you a happy Hanukkah, but that would be starting our discussion with Machlokes. That would be getting right into Machlokes as we begin. Because the Maram of Rothenburg and the Rambam have a disagreement if there's a mitzvah to be happy on Hanukkah. The Maram of Rothenburg says, if you look in the Gemara in Shabbos, it says Hallel v'hoidah. It's a day of saying days of saying Hallel every day by Shachris, and Hoidah al Hanisim in benching and by Shmoneh Esrei. But weiter, anything more than that, there's no obligation to eat, drink, and be merry. That's Purim, not Hanukkah. And the Rambam holds no, they are days of joy, they are days of Simcha. And we discussed yesterday between Mincha and Ma'ariv that there are those that paskin like this Rambam here. There's sets of 2 papers, so you could just take any set. The Maharshal and the Bach both side with the Rambam that there is a mitzvah to be happy and joyous, eat, drink, have parties, etc. Although the Ramoh seems to follow the Rambam, the Ramoh seems to follow the Tur and the Maram of Rothenburg, that they aren't really days of Simcha, but the Marshal and the Bach, they go like the Rambam. And the Shalah, the great Shalah, was a student of the Marshal. The years chronologically don't give the Shalah too long to have been by the Marshal, but he quotes the Marshal as his Rebbe. We have cases, so even though he was about 15 or something when the Marshal passed away, but the Shalah says, whenever the Marshal is machmir on the Ramah, one should follow the Marshal. You know, in that generation, you had the big poskim, you had Rabbi Yosef Kara, of course, the Shulchan Aruch. In Sfas, you have the Ramah in Krakow, and you have the Marshal in Lublin, probably the 3 biggest poskim of the time, arguably. And the Shalah says that although Ashkenazim, you always follow the Ramah, and the Shalah's father was a student of the Ramah, but the Shalah himself says that when the Marshal, my Rebbe is machmir, you follow Marshal. And being the Marshal is machmir, you have to be happy. It's a chumrah to be besimcha. So according to the Shalah, you have to be machmir like the Marshal, and you got to be happy over Hanukkah. And that's what's the chumrah? It's easy to walk around. Sometimes hard to be besimcha, but you have to work on it. Think it's easy to be besimcha? Simcha is an avodah. True joy is hard. I once heard. Anyhow, so when we tell each other Afreilich and Chanukah, it's following the Marshal and the Bach, because the Shalah said you got to be machmir like the Marshal when he's machmir. Anyhow, we've had a number of Chanukah shiurim over the past couple of years. We've discussed a number of interesting topics. Today's topic, actually, as fundamental as it is, we've never discussed before. So, it's a ripe time. And the peak in Mut Hashem is going to be a Chiddush, an explanation I heard from the great Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Schochet in California. Punkt, last week we did a little piece of his concerning the Alter Rebbe and the Aruch HaShulchan about davening. Today he's going to have something at the end, a very beautiful explanation about a debate between the Rambam and the Ramoh. And he's tackling some big people, but he has broad shoulders and is not afraid. Although we were afraid of him. Okay, number one. Number one is the Gemara in Shabbos. Okay, this is a well-known Gemara. This is the basis of all Chanukah Gemaras. Tana Rabbanan Sabraisa. The reason why the Chanukah Sugi is in Masechta Shabbos is because the Gemara in the second parak is talking about what type of wicks and oils you're allowed to use Friday evening. If it's a bad wick, or it's the oil is a faulty oil or a faulty wick, what's going to happen is Friday night your candle is going to be flickering, and if you're learning by the candle or you're doing something near the candle, you're allowed to use the candle. You're not supposed to read because you may turn it, but you might be using the candle for something else, and you might inadvertently play with the licht. Anyhow, so that's how the Gemara segues into what about Chanukah licht? What about the wicks and the oils by Chanukah? Because Chanukah licht you can't have benefit from. Fine. Either way, says the Brister, Tanu Rabbanan, Mitzvah's Chanukah. You know what the mitzvah of Chanukah is? Ner ishu beisai. One candle for the man and his house. Beisai is often a euphemism for his wife. Like it says about the Kohen Gadol's mechaper for himself and beisai. Beisai zu ishta, your home. Your home is your wife.
So a single candle.
Right, one single candle for you, but beisai, we're going to see actually some understand it's literally the house, not just your wife or your family, your children, but actually physically the house. The house, as if the house itself may need, every Jewish house needs a menorah. We're going to see a Pnei Yeshua at the end about that. But simply you would say beisai is bnei beisai, your wife and kids, your family. One candle every night, not one for the whole Hanukkah, one every night. Hamehadrin, and those that want to beautify the mitzvah, ner l'chol echad ve'echad, one candle for each person. So it doesn't matter what night of Hanukkah is, you make a tally of how many people in the house, that's how many candles you're going to have. Hamehadrin, min Hamehadrin, those that are even more particular and want to beautify the mitzvah, so there's a separate mode of operations. Bei Shammai Oimrim, Yom Rishon Madlik Shmoina, day one you start with 8 candles. Mikan ve'elach, from henceforth, Poiches v'heilach, we decrease. Beis Hillel Oimrim, Yom Rishon Madlik Achas. Beis Hillel says, nah, you start with 1, Mikan ve'elach, and then from then on, Moisef ve'elach, you add. That's the end of the Brister. So the Brister gives there are 3 ways of fulfilling the mitzvah. There's basics, there's Mehadrin, and then there's the super Mehadrin. Okay? And there's a debate of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, how to do the super Mehadrin. Omar Ula, so Ula comments, this is already generations after the Brister. Ula's an Menorah in Bavel. Pligi ba treim Amiroi b'Marava, in the west, which is Eretz Yisrael, which is southwest of Bavel. There are 2 Amoraim who debated. There was Rabbi Yossi bar Ravin and Rabbi Yossi bar Zveda. Okay, 2 fellows, both with the same first name. And they were debating why Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel have this disagreement. Chad Amar 1 said the reason of Beis Shammai is Keneged Yomim HaNichnasin. The time of the Beis Hillel Keneged Yomim HaYotzin. 1 said the debate's like this. When you light the candle the first night, Beis Hillel says, tonight's night 1, so you light 1. The second is night 2, you light 2. Beis Shammai flips it. The first night, how many days are coming ahead? How many future days are there? Yomim HaNichnasin. And which is a little bizarre. Why would Beis Shammai choose that? Or why would you choose Yomim HaNichnasin versus Yomim HaYotzin? By the way, just to point out, according to Beis Hillel, you're looking at how many days have passed. But you're only 5 minutes into the first night, it's Shkia, right? Hanukkah just started. Why are you lighting 1 candle? The day hasn't passed yet. According to Beis Hillel, when you count Yom HaYotzin, those that are passing, you count the day that you're in. According to Beis Shammai, you don't count the day you're in. He counts the days that are coming. So then the first night, you only light 7. You light 8, because according to Beis Shammai, you count the day you're in. Right? You just have to...
So we have 8 days of this joy, and you do it the first day. 7 days after.
So...
Plus, it represents the amount of oil in the Beit HaMikdash, because the first day, even though it was the amount of 1 day, but because it lasted 8 days, so basically what you're saying is you're reducing...
Yeah, okay, we'll get to the long... Right. So, no, but it's interesting that according to Beis Shammai, the moment your day begins, it's considered...
First day.
No, it's considered the day is still coming. And according to Beis Hillel, it's considered that day is already going. No, I'm pointing out just as a little bit of philosophical nuance over here.
I don't even get what you're saying.
No, according to Beis Shammai, when you're counting the days that are yet to come. So the first night Hanukkah, when you light, you should light 7. Why are you lighting 8? Because the first day, most of it is still yet to come. You're only 5 minutes in. According to Beis Hillel, you light 1. You're counting the days that have left. The day hasn't left yet. But since you're 5 minutes in, it's considered... I'm just saying, Beis Hillel considers each... I understand, but I'm just saying it's... No, there's episode of philosophical nuance over here. But let's leave that. So you wonder why Beis Shammai would choose the days that are coming. So the Pnei Yehoshua points out, and the Ben Ish Chai, and many point out, that Beis Shammai says you got to look at the flask of oil. let's imagine, we had a shiur once about exactly how the miracle physically transpired. But let's imagine they took the flask, they poured it into the cups, they poured it in, and lo and behold, the flask was still full. After the first night, they saw the miracle immediately. Before they poured the oil in, that flask had potential of 8 burnings. Miraculous potential of 8 instead of 1. Once they poured in the first one, now there's 7. It has the capacity of 7 miraculous nights left. Then 6, then 5. As far as the power, the burning power, the miraculous burning power in the fuel, it diminished. So the miracle was more powerful the first night. That's how the Pnei Yeshua explains that the miraculous burning power that was in the pach diminished every night. And so Beis Shammai looks at the oil, Beis Hillel looks at the candles, and therefore you had one night was one miracle, the next night was another miracle, you keep on adding. Fine. That's what one of these Rabbi Yosis felt was behind the debate. The Chadam, the other one says, Taimid de Beis Shammai keneged Parei HaChag. The other one says Beis Shammai actually compares it to one of the most random halachos in Torah. Usually on Yom Tov, the musaf the additional karbonos are identical each day. Pesach, they're identical, except for the cows on Sukkot. The lambs on Sukkot are 14 every day, but the cows, 13, 12, 11 goes down and down and down, ultimately equaling 70, connected the nations of the world, but you decrease every day. And the reason of Beis Hillel is, we have a general rule, Ma'alim b'kodesh ein meridin, we ascend in holiness, we don't decrease. So this is also bizarre. Beis Hillel said we have a general rule in Torah, you always increase. Beis Shammai doesn't agree to it's a general rule, he agrees to the rule. So he wants to forego in that general principle in order to link the Hanukkah candles to the cows on Sukkot. How do you explain that? So all the Achronim are up to explaining what in the world is Beis Shammai getting at. The simple explanation is Beis Shammai is not saying that the Chanukah lichtars carry the same message, they're symbolic of the cows of Sukkot. The point of Beis Shammai is, just like the cows on Sukkot, we decrease, even though there's a general rule of Ma'alim b'kodesh. What do you see from there? When you have a reason to decrease, then you can forego the principle of Ma'alim b'kodesh, of ascending in holiness. The reason to decrease on Sukkot is that the 70 cows correspond to the nations of the world, and the decreasing corresponds to them falling away and not oppressing us, etc. So too Beis Shammai feels, over here we have a reason to decrease. What's the reason? The same logic we said before. Because if you follow the actual physical manifestation of the miracle, the burning power of the oil in the jug decreases from day to day. Okay, fine, let's move.
The Hanukkah lights are for outside, connected with the goyim.
Okay, oh yeah, no, for sure there are. No. In Chiddush we do explain that there's a much deeper link between the cows and the Menorah. Yes, of course. But like even in Pashtus, you could just learn, like we said, that he's just trying to bring a proof, a legal proof that you could forego on Ma'alim b'kodesh when you have a reason to decrease. Fine. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, said Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shneis keinim hoyu b'tzidon. There were 2 elders in Sidon. Echad asa k'Beis Shammai. One went like Beis Shammai. The echad asa k'divrei Beis Hillel. If you want. One went like Beis Hillel. Which, by the way, how could you have someone going like Beis Shammai? The Gemara says, and we once said a long time ago, the Gemara says in Bracha, a bas kol descended from heaven and said the halacha follows Beis Hillel. So the Ritva says a fascinating thing. Do you know when you have to follow Beis Hillel against Beis Shammai? When it's areas of law, halacha, areas of minig. If it's a custom, you can follow Beis Shammai. The Ritva says when it comes to minhagim, you can follow Beis Shammai. The Mishnah Brura quotes it, and that's why the Gemara says that there was someone in Sidon aware of what Beis Hillel said, chose to follow Beis Shammai. The Ritva says when it comes to minhagim, you can follow Beis Shammai.
What is the Rabbi pointing out?
Oh, we haven't finished. We're in the middle of his sentence, but yeah.
Don't we generally say we don't listen to Abaska when it comes to halacha?
That's a very quick. That was the shiur we had. So Tosfos discusses why we did over there, because there was reason to follow Beis Hillel. They were the majority, but Beis Shammai were sharper, mechaded itfei. There's a big shaila when you follow majority, what if in a court you have majority, but the minority are the senior scholars? So the Sefer HaChinuch says that you don't follow majority actually when the minority are superior in scholarship. But there's a shaila, do you follow majority? In other words, you have quantity versus quality here, eichos and kamos. So for that, the Bas Kol can come and say, you know what, follow Beis Hillel. It was just telling you which side to go. Which may disprove the Sefer HaChinuch, but okay, that's an issue for itself. So continues Rabbi Bar Bachana, that these two elders in Sidon, one went like Beis Shammai, one Beis Hillel, Zeh noisen ta'am ledvorav. One of them said, you know why Beis Shammai says you go down? Keneged Parei Achag, because of the Sukkos cows. And the one that went like Beis Hillel said, Mailim b'kodesh ve'emerin. The vort of Rabbi Bar Bachana is that the Gemara before said there were two rabbis in Israel who had a debate of what's going on by Shammai Beis Hillel. The second one said it was either you follow the cows or Mailim b'kodesh. Says Rabbi Bar Bachana, well, two rabbis in Sidon went down that path. What's the halachic ramification? You're going to see a Vilna Gaon like you never saw before. We'll see soon. So this is the Gemara. Now it's very interesting that the Brister says there are three ways of fulfilling a mitzvah. Generally, by every mitzvah, there's the minimum, and then there's Hidur mitzvah, there's beautifying a mitzvah, which we had a shir not too long ago as well about the letter that David Luria sent to his Rebbe about being Mehadrin, beautifying a mitzvah. The Gemara says in Baba Kama ad shlish till a third, which Tosfos says could be the physical size of the bigger, and Rashi says it means to add a third. In other words, according to Rashi, if you go to a store and there's two mezuzahs to buy, right? One of them is mamish basic, and the other one is beautiful. So if it's twice as much, you don't have to buy it. But if it's just a third more, then you should buy it for Hidur mitzvah. So hold on. So what's interesting over here is the Hidur in this Bracha is necessarily more than a third. The main mitzvah, the Iker, is one candle per night. Mehadrin, candle for everyone, for all 15 of you, all 5 of you. I don't even 3 of you, 2 of you. The moment there's 2 of you, it's already double. So the Brister Rav, the Velvel of Brisk, says, you know what that means? It means the Hidur of Chanukah is different than anywhere else. It's less than everywhere else. And he explains, in all other areas of halacha, it's really incumbent upon you to add the extra third and bolster the mitzvah. Hidur mitzvah is not just a recommendation, it's a mitzvah. Is it an obligation? It's almost an obligation. It's definitely a mitzvah. Whereas over here, the Hidur is many times more than the basic command. Here it's optional. The Brister says because here it's more than a third of the original, of the minimum amount, it's optional. So he's kind of watering down the level of Hidur over here. What's interesting is that in all the other areas of halacha, we always are very cognizant of what the basic mitzvah is, and then each person on his own wants to be Mehadrin. Whereas here, the entire world has accepted upon themselves the Mehadrin min Mehadrin. It's become like the mitzvah itself. So it's ironic, the Brister says that really legally the Hidur here is less incumbent upon you than anywhere else in Torah. But practically, the Jews have embraced the Hidur of the Hidur over here. You'll never see anyone lighting one candle. This is a shortage of chves. Unless you can't leave your house and you can't buy it, But it's just interesting to notice that as far as in practice, no Hidur has ever been embraced more than this. It's unheard of for anyone not to follow the Hidur. And the Brister says legally the Hidur here is less of an obligation than anywhere else because of the fact that it's always going to be more than a third. Fine.
What is the Hidur? Just so you use it for candle.
What is the Hidur? Great question. Okay, so why b'chlal do you light a candle? Because the miracle happened with a candle. So why don't we light our own? The main takana was not to have your own menorah, just one candle. Reminisce the fact that a miracle happened with the candle. The Mehadrin want one for each person. So we're going to discuss a little bit later on what exactly is the Hidur in that. Why should each one? The one after that, the Mehadrin I get, according to Beis Hillel, you want to follow the story of the miracle. Tonight was one night, second night, third night. This is the fourth. You want to grow as the miracle grew in time of memorial. It's more heker lanes. It's more of a recognition of the miracle, right? It's a clearer demonstration. It's more of a publication. It's more of a piercing to the public, more of a heker, more of a recognition to yourself and the people around you. And that's why it doesn't get boring. Every night something new. Every night something new. And it's more Hanukkah guilt, right? Every night there's something new. Okay, the first debate we're going to discuss is a debate between Tosfos and the Rambam. And then that will lead us to a debate between the Rambam and the Ramoh. And then at the end, Rav Schochet will appear. So you join number two. In number 2 is a Tosfos. V'Hamehadrin min Hamehadrin. The Mehadrin min Hamehadrin, which simply means those that are, the scrupulous amongst the scrupulous. Nira L'Ri, the Ri says like this. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel's debate of 8 till 1 or 1 till 8 is not continuing from the Mehadrin. You don't have a candle for each person of the house. You go back to the original takana of 1 candle. And either 8 till 1 or 1 till 8. But not that each person in the house has a candle for themselves.
One menorah.
Right, exactly, 1 menorah. Loi kaimi, they're not referring ella aneri shel beis, they're referring to the original din. 1 candle for the house on the first night, and according to Beis Hillel, 2 candles the second, 3 the third. Beis Shammai would say 8 the first, 7 the second, only 1 menorah. Why?
Basically, 1 candle?
Yeah, for the whole house. Shekain, and Tosfos says why? Because yesh yoiser hider. Now, and what's the hider? It's a big hider. The ikka hekera, because there's a recognition about the miracle. Kishamoisif v'hoilech, when you add every night like Beis Hillel, or machash like Beis Shammai, keneged yob manichnasim ayayitzim. You're representing the days yet to come or the days leaving. Both according to Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, the way you light the menorah, it's reflecting on the 8-day miracle that happened in time of memorial. So it demonstrates more of the nature of the miracle. There's more pirsim, there's more heker. Aval, but says Tosfos, im oisener l'kol echad, if you're doing a candle for everyone in the house, afilu Yosef, even if you're going to add every night, mekan ve'elech, leka heker, there'll be no recognition. Sheyizru, people, the onlookers will just think, shekach yesh b'nei adam, but by that's how many people are in the house. Meaning, according to Tosfos, if you're going to have, let's say on the third night, there's 4 of you in the house. So you're going to have 12 candles. The person on the street sees 12 candles. He has no idea what night of Hanukkah it is. It could be the 6th night and there's 2 people in the house. The second night, 6 people in the house. The 4th night, it could be the first night, there's 12 people in the house. He'll have no idea. But if you only have 1 menorah, then it's very clear the amount of candles that you have corresponds. If the 4 candles, it's the 4th night.
So you obviously have to have multiple menorahs because you're not going to put 20 candles in 1 menorah. So
if you have multiple menorahs that are separate from each other, it's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. Because then it's obvious. Then at that point, they didn't have these fancy menorahs like we have. It was just candles sitting there, chveis on a plate. So this is what Tosfos says. Now hold on. If you think about this Tosfos for a second, very difficult Tosfos. What's he saying? That now when you walk past the house and you see 4 candles, you know it's the 4th night. Who said? Maybe that family is just Mehadrin and there's 4 people in the house. Maybe that, still don't know what night of Hanukkah it is. Punkt, there's 4 people in the house because they're doing the first Hiddur. So the way you have to understand Tosfos is that at least within Mehadrin min Hamehadrin there's recognition. If the whole world's Mehadrin min Hamehadrin, which is what's happened, so then nowadays if you see 4 candles, you know it's the 4th night, because no one does Mehadrin. But says Tosfos, if you're going to have the candles for each person of the house, then like I said, if there's 3 people in the house in the 4th night, you'll have 12 candles altogether. The on-seer has no idea what's going on. Because even within Mehadrin and Mehadrin, it could be the 6th night, 2 people, 2nd night, 6, there's all these combinations. But if you, hold on, let me just... So we're going to get to that. Gavaldi, we're going to get to that Ramoh in number 7. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. If there's a clear separation, it's different. But back in the day, they used to light outside the house. You had to light by the front door, in the tefach hasamuch. You had to do it by the front door of the house, outside the house. Back in the day, they did it outside the house, by the front, right outside the front door, on the left side, so the mezuzahs on the right. It all had to be kind of crumpled together. So you have to just imagine, you had a little plate right outside your front door, on the left side. It has to be within a tefach of the door. All the candles are going to be crumpled on a plate. So you can see 12 candles. So even within Mehadrin and Mehadrin, you have no idea what's going on. But according to Tosfos, that Mehadrin is only one person lights. 4 candles means the 4th night. What about, but this is not what we do. We have everybody lighting. So we follow the Rambam. Look at the Rambam in number 3. The Rambam disagrees with Tosfos. How many candles? The Rambam's very sweet and clear. Mitzvah sheyiyeh kol bayis or bayis madlik ner echad. The Rambam has the term every house. Every house needs 1 candle. Bein shahayu anshe bayis, whether the house was many people. Bein shaloi hayu boy el adam echad, whether only one person in the house. But v'amahadr samitzah, you want to do it in a more mufchadik fashion. Madlik ner is communion anshe bayis. You light candles according to the amount of the people in the house. According to the Rambam, it's the balabayis that lights all the candles. Okay, and we'll get to that. Ner l'kol echad ve'echad. You light according to the amount of people in the house. 1 candle for each person. Bein anoshim, whether men or women. V'b'mahadr yeser al zeh. You want to go above and beyond. V'oisa mitzvah min hamufka. You really want to strike it big. Madlik ner l'kol echad ve'echad. You do a candle for each person. The first night, if there's 5 people in the house, 5 candles. And then every night you add another candle for each person. And he says, 10 people in the house. You have 10 candles. The second night, 20. Third night, 30. Until you light 80 candles in the 8th night. Very clear Rambam, different than Tosfos.
It's not counted.
Right, but he does count men and women. I'm going to point something out on that. A very bizarre thing. What?
Men and women is only in the middle one, not by the Mehadrin.
No. He doesn't repeat it, but he means no. Same thing. Yes, for sure.
But we don't do that either.
Right.
So, maybe we do. We'll see. In Sefer, not so posh. The Rebbe has the right song with Sefer in Hagim, and then in the Horror he seems to have a big problem. I don't have it. I don't know. Minig poshet b'chol oreinu b'sfarad. The Rambam says, but you know what the minig is in Spain? Now, he's writing this when he's in Egypt. But in the Sephardic part of the world, sheyiyu kol anshe abayis madlikin ner echad b'layla rishon. The whole family has 1 candle the first night. U'maisifin v'holchin ner b'chol, and every night you add 1. Ad shenimsa madlik b'lel shmini shmoines. The 8th night you have 8 candles, whether there were many or just 1 person in the house. So, right. The minig, says the Rambam, is not to do what the Rambam interprets as Mehadrin and Mehadrin. In Spain. So the Rambam first says what he feels is the meaning of the Gemara, different than Tosfos. Leider, the minig is, but the Rambam doesn't critique the minig. And he says minig poshet. Minig poshet means this is the custom. So which means that's how the poskim understand that Rambam's endorsing the custom. Now, even though this custom, according to the Rambam, is nishtahin nishtaher, the Rambam learns Mehadrin mina Mehadrin is continuing from Mehadrin. That you have 1 candle for each person, plus you keep on adding.
Doesn't it sound like there's no Menorah, no concept of a Menorah at this point in time?
Right. Yeah. But that's going to change soon. Right.
No,
exactly. Yeah. Because the reason is because everyone had to light mamash in the same outside the front door. 80 candles. The Rambam, 80 candles are all going to be on 1 plate, 1 round, the silver plate. You have 80 candles right outside the front door on the left side. Tefach somuch lepesach. You don't have room. You don't have a big table full of menorahs. All the candles are next to each other.
Back then, that was expensive.
Yeah.
Candles were expensive.
Yeah. So 80. Yeah. Maybe that's why the minig in Spain was to cut down.
Well, no, for sure. It's not easy to get candles.
Especially olive oil.
And wick.
So that's another thing, right? If you have one big bowl, you have to have a cover on it, but then taka, each wick can be a separate candle. Yeah, that's also possible. That's also possible, yes. So here's the thing. So the Rambam's endorsing a custom which l'chayra is nishtahir nishtaher. If you look in number 4, the Lechem Mishnah, he's in the second half of the 1500s. And he says, V'im K, number 4, Minig didon, our custom, the Sephardim, Lefi das Rabbeinos, according to the Rambam, l'chayr is near a minig b'tos. The minig of Spain that the Rambam endorses, l'chayr, that one person from Metzvah comes from nowhere. The Gemara, according to the Rambam, the Gemara never said that. The Brister never said that. Somebody made it up. The Brister gave 3 options. 1 candle for the house, and he says, if you learn like Tosfos, no sweat. The Mefarshim that they learn Mehadrin min Mehadrin is not continuing on the first Hiddur. Rather it goes back on the main mitzvah, 1 candle the first night. And there's only 1 Menorah. If you hold like Tosfos, fine, but we don't. So the Lechem Mishnah says, where did this Sephardic custom come from? According to the Rambam, it's not any of the 3 options the Brister gave. The Yeshloim, it says, the Lechem Mishnah, Mikol Makam, nonetheless, lo you have a minig, but it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. Because you're doing the main mitzvah by having at least 1 candle. Kivan davdinun kedin, we're doing the main mitzvah of 1 candle every night. So there's no mistake here. Afal gav, even though medina loy boy the main mitzvah is enough. It's adequate to have 1 every night. You don't have to add. Onu niralanu, the Yidden decided lemevid hype make this pshara and to do Sofa b'kahai gavna. The Lechem Mishnah is saying that what the minig of Spain was taka was not sanctioned by the Gemara. We're following the ikr mitzvah of 1 candle every night, but you have a few extra candles to add every night, at least to get something similar to Beis Hillel, even though Beis Hillel was actually referring to being Ma'aseh v'Heilich for everyone in the house. That's the Lechem Mishnah. It's a very strange Lechem Mishnah. If you look in number 5, the Bach says this question was asked earlier, that the Re'im, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, who we had a shir about him a couple of weeks ago, in his commentary to the Smag, Kosov, he writes the same thing, Al Minig Ares Sfard. The Mizrahi says that the custom in Spain, Shekoshol of the Mizrahi, I don't get it. Lefi das, according to the Rambam, it's nothing, it's nishtah nishtaher. Eina, it's not like fi mitzvah. It's not the bare mitzvah, the mitzvah bare minimum, which is 1 candle per night. It's not the Mehadrin, which is 1 for each person, and not Mehadrin mina Mehadrin, which according to the Rambam is Ma'aseh v'Heilich for each person. And the Re'im says he doesn't get it. The same kasha as the Lechem Mishnah. Says the Bach, there's no kasha. You know where the custom came from? It came from Tosfos. It leaked from Tosfos. V'loi kasha midi, there's no question. Borru, it's clear. Oise minig al pi das Tosfos. The custom in Spain didn't come out of it didn't fall off the moon, it didn't come from Mars. It came from how Tosfos learns the Gemara. That Mehadrin mina Mehadrin, the best Hiddur is going back to 1 candle per night for the whole family, and you're Ma'aseh v'Heilich.
Steer to the Rambam.
Hold on. It's not how the Rambam learned the Gemara, but it's how Tosfos learned. Now, you want to know where the custom came from? It came from Tosfos. The base Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, I don't have it here, on the two writes the same thing. Rabbi Yosef Cairo says the custom must have come from Tosfos. It's just funny how by the Bach and the base Yosef, it's obvious, like what you said right away, that the Sephardic custom came from Tosfos. The Mizrahi and the Lechem Mishnah refuse to believe it. The Mizrahi and Lechem Mishnah are both Sephardim, and they refuse to believe that the minig of Tosfos infiltrated the Sephardic camps. And therefore the Mizrahi says, I don't know where it came from. And the Lechem Mishnah came up with his explanation. Lechem Mishnah, when he's twisting himself to say what he says, why doesn't he just say that it came in from... And Lechem Mishnah quotes, according to Tosfos, makes sense. So maybe it came from there. Can't be.
How can you think Sephardim hold like Tosfos if Tosfos' opinion negates Rambam?
In how to understand so why would they go like Tosfos instead of the Rambam?
Right.
Because it's all about a minig. It was a machlekes how to understand a minig. Minhag is how minhagim work. You don't always
Spread before the Rambam wrote it.
Right.
It seems like it was already there when the Rambam wrote it.
Like the minhag was
Yeah.
pretty widespread.
Yeah.
Sfarad, yes.
Yeah, the minhag was widespread, right.
The Tosfos were in France, right?
Yeah,
So it could have spread from France to Spain.
yeah, the question is when it began. Okay, there's lots of shilas. There's a whole shilah b'chlal when lighting menorah began. There are some that believe lighting menorah only began by the churban of the second Beis HaMikdash. Because before then, they had the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Once there was the churban, so then the candles began. There are some who are going to contend that. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel have a debate of how to light the menorah. It's not Shammai and Hillel themselves who lived during the Beis HaMikdash. It's Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, who were, the yeshivas continued. Anyhow, that's a far-off theory. But as far as this question, how are you going to know when the minhag? The Rambam saying if it was a minhag poshet in every city in Spain in the time of the Rambam, then it must have began a long time before then. Okay, so you think, and when Tosfos wrote this, you think Tosfos were the ones being mechadish something? No, they're clarifying what the Gemara meant, but this Mustam was their minhag as well. It's just interesting how the Mizrahi and the Lechem Mishnah have such an issue with how this became the minhag in Spain. And the Beis Yosef and the Bach say, what do you mean? That's how many people learn the Gemara. I'm sure before Tosfos there were many who learned that Gemara as well. So, and it's only a minhag over here. All you need to have is one Ashkenazi rabbi to come to Spain and make the minhag in his town. It's a much cheaper minhag, right? It's only one. So that's all of a sudden they catch it on like wildfire. Fine. There happens to be a comment. The Bach and his son-in-law, the Taz, both comment an irony over here that the Sephardim end up following Tosfos and the Ashkenazim follow the Rambam. It's quite an irony over here. Where the Bach and the Beis Yosef say that even the Sephardim follow Tosfos, but how ironic is it that the Ashkenazim here actually abandoned Tosfos and we learn the Gemara like the Rambam? So that's what the Taz points out, that the Ashkenazim follow the Rambam and the Sephardim follow Tosfos. I will tell you, it's garnish pashut to say that. Join me in number 7 for a second. In number 7, a very important statement from the Ramoh. A very important statement from the Ramoh is Darchei Moshe. Okay? So he says, V'kosav Ma'arom of Prague. Number 7, a couple words in. Rav Avraham of Prague. Or as the Lomdische people want to call Prague. I think in Czech today they pronounce it Praha. Is that right? I think they pronounce it Praha. But
I'm not Czech.
Yeah,
you have a.
I'll have to take a trip down.
The Avraham of Prague was a big Rav. He was, I think, the chief rabbi of Bohemia at that time. But either way, he had a big yeshiva in Prague, and he passed away when the Ramoh was yet a boy. So he's like one generation kind of before the Ramoh. He passed away in the early 1540s. The Ramoh was born around 10 years before then, fine. And Rabbi Avraham of Prague writes like this.
So when it says Ben Adam, does that mean only the men, excluding women? In 7, if you look. Okay, sorry.
Oh, you're going too fast for me. I don't read that fast. I gotta. For us, Shemadlikin Bifnim, Rabbi Avraham of Prague says like this. The times of the Gemara they lit outside. The custom originally was to light outside your front door.
Because you had no windows, you only had wood to close, and you had
no one had windows.
Fabric curtains.
What they did, okay.
So you couldn't have it because it would light their curtains.
The original enactment was to do it outside so people in the street would see.
Would see. That's what I'm saying. There was no glass.
Right.
No glass,
and the truth is, if you had a front door, and then you had a garden in front,
you have to put it outside.
According to Tosfos, it has to be between the garden and the street. Rashi holds between your front door and the garden. Tosfos holds the garden and the street. Now you wonder, between the garden and the street, who said there's a mezuzah? Right? The Gemara says you want the mezuzah. So back then they used to have a gate, like in Australia, in Melbourne where I come from, the norm is that you have a house, you have a garden in front, there's a gate. There's a gate around the garden. And more often than not, the gate around the garden, the wall has a Has a mezuzah. So Tosfos says you do it between, there's a doorway, if there's a doorway, fine. So that's how they did it back in the day, outside the front door. But says Avraham of Prague, but these days we light b'fnim, you light inside. So who's the publicity for? Your family. Your family knows how many people are at home. If your family sees 12 candles, and there's 4 people in the house, they know there's 4 people in the house and it's the third night. The family's not going to get confused. The yoidin bebayis, kama bnei adam bebayis. In the house, they know how many people there are. The lekel amechish, the Tosfos' issue falls off. There's no more concern, Shema Yomer, they're going to say, kach b'nei bebayis. There's no more concern to say that there's 12 people in the house. In the house, mevest. So now, even the das ha-Tosfos minagenu nochain. Said Avraham of Prague, the way we light inside nowadays, Tosfos himself would say, you should add every night according to the amount of people in the house, because there's no room for concern. Va'oid, another thing says Avraham of Prague, ma'achar since madlikin bifnim, when you light inside, you can afford to have different menorahs. You can have a big table with different menorahs. Kol echad yuchol lahadlik b'macham yuchad. Each one can light in their own place. You don't have to have 12 candles on one little plate, all in the tefach next to the front door on the other side of the mezuzah like it once was. No, now that you're inside, you find a doorway, you can find a few doorways, find a few windows, wherever you light your menorah. Each one has their own menorah, basically. You can see each, so it's not 12 candles muddled together. It'll be 3, 3, 3, 3. So it's very clear it's the third night, because each one is on its own. The Iko Hekera, one?
You have 100 Bachram.
The Iko Hekera, their people don't even know which is their menorah. That's my menorah, that's my menorah. Can't even identify their own menorahs. The Iko Hekera. Now, there is recognition when you're Meisiv v'Hailech every night. Therefore, minagenu osi shaper, the minig is good l'kuli alma to everyone. Rav Avraham of Prague is saying, and the Ramoh quotes this over here in the Darchei Moshe and in his Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, he quotes Avraham of Prague, that there's 2 reasons why Tosfos would say what we're doing is good the right way. A, since you light inside, the family knows how many people there are, there's no room for mistake. And B, if you're inside, each one can find their own window, their own doorway, you could do it with it, right? Once we began to light inside, there was no din. It needs to be 1 tefach from the front door of the house. Once you're inside, anywhere inside. So then everyone can have their own menorah. This is my space, that's your space. So it's very clear when you see a bundle of 3 candles, it's the third night. What do you see from this Rav Avraham of Prague? That what we do today, it's not like the Taz and the Bach, we're following the Rambam. Tosfos would agree that what we're doing is the right way to do it. Tosfos was explaining what the Gemara meant. Tosfos in number 2 is teaching the Brister. In the times of the Brister, they lit outside, so all the candles are huddled together. So you have that issue. But once 800, 1,000, whenever it began, that we started lighting inside, so that changed. A very important Avraham of Prague. So it comes out that what we're doing is sanctioned by Tosfos as well, which means that the Sephardic minig of 1 every night is not according to anybody. So now it's a real problem. Now you understand the Lechem Mishnah and the Mizrahi. Now you understand the Lechem Mishnah and the Mizrahi, because the minig in Spain to only have 1 menorah every night is not according to anyone, because everyone would tell you, Tosfos and the Rambam, that you should have candles for each person. Now you understand why the Mizrahi was bothered. Now you understand Lechem was bothered. Okay, fine. That gives a bit of a hatom, a little bit of a taste. Comes the Guroi number 6, and he says the following. He's v'yesh oimrim, that he's talking about because actually look in number 9 just to see the language of the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramoh. Number 9 says Rabbi Yosef Kaira, number 9, Kamo neiros madlik, how many candles? Balayla rishon madlik echad, 1 for the first night. Mikan ve'elech, from then on moisef v'hoilech echad, there's another candle every night, until by the last night you have 8. Va'afilu, even if Rabbi is a big family, lo yadliku Yosef, no more. Rabbi Yosef Kaira is following the minig of Spain that the Rambam endorsed. The Rambam doesn't kvetch about the minig. Minig pashut, he says this is the Rambam endorsed the minig. And the Ramoh comments, V'yesh some say no, the kol echad mibnei abayis yadlik, you want a candle for each person. V'chein aminik pasha, that's our minig in Ashkenaz. And then he says, V'yizru, be careful, he quotes from Avraham of Prague, Litin kol echad ve'echad neiros of makom yuchad, each one should have his own menorah. Kedei she'heker, now will be clear how many neiros madlikin for to know which night of Hanukkah it is. So you see that the Ramoh goes with Avraham of Prague Lamaisa. Okay, so comes the groin number 6. He's going on V'yesh Oimrim, the words of the Ramoh, that you should have a candle for each person. Kain Kosav Rambam La'alocha, says the groin number 6. That is the Rambam's opinion. The Rambam says the true meaning of the Brister is Mehadrin and Mehadrin is you add every night according to Beis Hillel, but you have enough candles for each person of the family. Venera says the Gra Shekeinu Das Harif. I think the Rif agrees to this, to the Rambam. Okay, that's very important. Right, in the world of Rabbi Yosef Kaira, the 3 pillars of Psak are Rif, Rambam, and Rosh. And if the Rif and the Rambam are on the same side, says the Gra, how do I know the Rif agrees to the Rambam that the meaning of the Brister was be moisiv v'hoilich for each person of the house? Midahevi, because he brings the statement of Rabba bar bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shneis Kinim about the 2 elders in Sidon. That one of them said Parei Achag and the other one said Mailim B'Kodesh.
You can't read it.
Ve'ein chulu, etc. Ve'ein Mehadrin, not to descend, chulu. Yeah. But says the girl like this. What was Tosfos worried about? If you can have all the candles outside the front door, and there's 3 people in the house, and it's the 4th night, you'll have 12 candles altogether, so no one, the Almuk has no idea what's going on. Who said the reason why you're adding is in order to know what night of Hanukkah it is? That's only if you follow the opinion of Yomim HaYotzin and Yomim HaNichnasin. That Beis Hillel wants you to know how many days have gone. But if Beis Hillel is caring about Mailim B'Kodesh, just adding every night, then it's not about knowing which night of Hanukkah was. That was never the Vart. So then who cares if it's muddled together? So says the Vilna Gaon, according to this reason of Mailim B'Kodesh, Loi Chashin on Lekeh, we don't care about knowing Yomim HaNichnasin, how many days are coming in, like Beis Shammai or Yotzin, like Tosfos says there. The Chain Mashma B'Gemara, so to its Mashma in the Gemara, it says Chad Omer Chulu. It sounds like from the Gemara, there's a debate. When the Gemara says, Ula said 2 people in Eretz Yisrael have an argument behind the logic. What?
Is not Eretz.
No. There's 2 things in the Gemara. Number 1, there's Rabba bar Chana b'Shem Yerich about the 2 Kenim in Sidon. Before then, though, the Gemara said Ula said there are 2 Amiroim in the west, B'Marava, debating what's behind Beis Beis Hillel. What are they debating about? Says the Gemara, the debate's like this. If Beis Hillel cares about Yomim HaYotzin, then you have to be able to tell what night of Hanukkah it is. Then Tosfos will be right. You can't have it all muddled together. But if it's just Mailim B'Kodesh, you don't need to know what night it is. He says, the nafkamina b'kahaygan, the nafkamina of the 2 opinions in the Gemara number 1 about what's the thought process of Beis Hillel will be over here. And the maskana of the Gemara is that the Beis Kenim, the maskana is about the 2 elders in Sidon, which is Beis Hillel's Mailim B'Kodesh. One elder followed by Shammai by the cows of Sukkot. The other one follows Mailim B'Kodesh, Beis Hillel. So what's the Vilna Gaon saying? He says, the Rif quotes that story in Sidon. Well, why is he quoting that? So some say it's to teach you that by a minig you're allowed to follow Beis Shammai, like the Ritva we quoted. Maybe the last couple lines of number 1, the halachic value is there's a guy that went like Beis Shammai because when it comes to a custom, follow Beis Shammai. But says the Gemara, no, that's not the reason. It's to tell you that Beis Hillel cares about Mailim B'Kodesh. It's not about looking at the candles, what night of Hanukkah. It's never what it was. So I don't care if it's all muddled. So if you say Mailim B'Kodesh, then the Rambam's right. Have all the candles together. But if it's to know which day, you follow Tosfos. So the Vilna Gaon's not the only one who says this. The Rebbe in a Sichin Chelek Chaf quotes this actually from some earlier sources as well. He also quotes it from the Vilna Gaon. The first person is someone called the Ra'anach, Reish Aleph Nun Ches, Rebbe Elio Ibn Chaim. Who is he? He was the Chacham Bashi. He was the head chief rabbi in the Ottoman Empire in the 1500s, the latter part of the 1500s. You know, a little while ago we had a shir about the Maharsha, and we had a paper. We put together a paper of 15 of the greatest scholars that lived during the Maharsha's time. A little older, a little younger, same age. You know, that time period. And I was actually thinking that if I was a Sephardi, I would have been highly offended from that paper, because on the paper there are 15 big gedolim. And one of them, Rabbi Yosef Kaira, might be the only Sephardi on the list. Reb Chaim Vital was there, okay, but he's from Syria. But everybody else, the Levush, the Taisus Yomtiv, the Maharam, the Semeh, all these people, Ramoh, they're all Ashkenazim. And after the shir, I realized, hey, I cut out half of the Jewish world. What happened to Achenu Bnei Yisrael Asfardim? During the 1500s, it was a great era. You had some big rabbis in Morocco, but particularly in two areas of the world, in Saloniki in Greece and in Constantinople in Turkey. There was a major influx of Sephardic Jews to those areas after the expulsion of Spain in 1492. Where did Jews go? The Abarbanel says about 300,000 Jews left Spain. More remain, but 300,000 Jews. The Abarbanel says most people didn't make it to, most people died. But those that survived, where did they? So some went to Portugal and to Morocco, but many went to the Ottoman Empire. They accepted us, embraced us with open arms. Saloniki in Greece, and Constantinople received a major influx of huge rabbis. And in the 1500s, there were incredible Gaonim, Sephardic Gedolim. So the Ra'anach, Rabbi Eliyahu ben Chaim, the Ra'anach is in Constantinople. He's in Turkey. Who were some of the people? Just to say their names, Heilig Kanem and holy names. We have to do tshuva for that Marshosh here. But some of the great, the Marshtam, Reb Shmuel di Modina, he was living in Saloniki. In Saloniki, the place was so Jewish, it's recorded in fact, that the city became so Jewish, the port, it's a port city in Greece, it was closed on Shabbos. For 400 years, till the Holocaust, it was closed on Shabbos. The Jews had such an impact on the city. And he had huge Rabbanim, the Maharshtam, Reb Shmuel di Modina, and the Maharshach, Reb Shlomo Koyen, Reb Yosef Ibn Lev, who we said last week was a candidate to write the Shulchan Aruch in place of Yosef Kaira. They were all in Saloniki. Incredible people. Anyhow, Reb Eliyahu Ibn Chaim, he was at that time in the latter part of the 1500s, chief rabbi of the Ottoman Empire, in the seat of Constantinople. And he's the first one to say this chap, that the debate of Tosfos and the Rambam depends on which explanation you take in Beis Hillel and the Gemara. If you're following Beis Hillel cares about Yom, what day of Hanukkah are we? So then you can't have all the candles huddled together, because then there's the onlooker cannot discern what night of Hanukkah is. Maybe there's a lot of people in the house. But if you take Mailim B'Kodesh, you don't need to know. As long as you add, the more you add, the better. It doesn't have to be discernible to the onlooker. Anyhow.
Maybe the end of that Rambam is telling us you could do like Beis Shammai also. You're just connecting for the you're just doing one. But that's right. Meaning, same idea, just backwards. Or according to Beis Shammai, you can just do that, the 8 and 7 and 6 and 5. You don't have to add for every person.
Well, that's according to Tosfos. According to the Rambam, Mehadrin mina Mehadrin by definition is continuing. Listen, any kid that learns, this is Mehadrin, and Mehadrin mina Mehadrin, the Chayr is continuing the sentence. According to Tosfos, how do you even teach the words Mehadrin mina Mehadrin? How do you even translate the words? They're more Mehadr than the first Mehadr, even though the first one might have more candles. According to, if there's 15 people in the house, the first Mehadrin has 15 candles. The second guy only has 2 on the second night, but he's Mehadrin mina Mehadrin. He's getting away with 1/10 of the price, and it's not so posh to teach according to Tosfos. How do you explain? If you have 10 people in the house, Mehadrin, you have 10 candles. That's only Mehadrin. But your neighbor has 2 candles because it's the second night. Oh, he's Mehadrin mina Mehadrin. How do you explain that? Right? It's very, very difficult to explain like Tosfos. Anyhow, fine. Al Kapanim, the fact is we saw that from Rav Avraham of Prague, once we started lighting in the house, everything changed. Once you light in the house, which happened, let's say, about 1,000 years ago, it's hard to know when it changed. The Rambam doesn't write that nowadays we light in the house. The Rambam doesn't quote that. The Rambam speaks halacha, we still light outside. But Tosfos does recognize the fact that these days we light inside. In number 8. In number 8, Tosfos quotes the Ri, who recognizes already in his time they used to light inside. The Ri is talking about the Zman, the correct time to light. The Gemara says, at least according to one interpretation of the Brister, the Gemara says that the time to light is between Shkia and until people leave the marketplace. The word Shkia itself has a big debate. Does it mean when the sun sets or it means Tseis? The Rosh and the Tur say it means Tseis. The Vilna Gaon says it means sunset itself. But the Brister says you have until people leave the marketplace. And according to one understanding of the Gemara, it means that's the only window you have to light your menorah. Says the Ri, that was 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, the times of the Gemara. That since you're lighting outside, you can only light while people are still walking around. But according to the Ri, it seems that nowadays ain't lochosh masayadik. The Ri holds these days that it doesn't matter when you light. Who's watching the family? Because madlikim b'fnim, you light it as long as your family's up, your wife is up, is good. By many hold, if you're going to follow the Ri and you come home late at night and no one's up, you're going to wake someone from your family up. Yeah, you do. You're going to wake them up. There's some hold before Chatzos, you don't, only after Chatzos. Okay, there's different opinions. No, lighting, no, yeah, at least have to have one candle. That's a chiyuv. You got to sell your clothes. You know, a major canal, I'll throw this in. A brain teaser. You want to hear a good brain teaser? Here we go. There's a halacha, you have to sell your clothes for Neiros Chanukah. If someone's a poor, no candles, all he has is a little scarf, he has to sell that scarf to get Hanukkah candles. For Shabbos licht, you never have to do that. You never have to sell your clothes to get licht for Friday night. Only Hanukkah licht. But there's another halacha. If it's Friday Hanukkah and you only have one candle, what do you use it for? The Hanukkah licht or the Shabbos licht? And this was a big issue in the times of the Gemara. If it's a Hanukkah licht, it has to be outside the front door. Shabbos licht, it's in the house. Shabbos licht always comes first. But here's the conundrum. It's Friday Hanukkah. You don't have anything. You have one little scarf. It'll get you one candle. So you have to sell the scarf for a licht because it's Hanukkah. But once you get one licht, you use it for Shabbos. But I never had to sell my scarf for Shabbos.
Can you cut the candle in half and use?
Won't work for either. It's just there's one candle. So this is the big conundrum of Rabbi Yeshua of Kutna. What do? On the one hand, it's Hanukkah, you have to sell your scarf for the licht. But now that you have one licht, you have to use it for Shabbos. For Shabbos, I didn't have to sell the scarf. So what do? Not sell the scarf? For every other day of Hanukkah, you would have to. But Friday Hanukkah, you don't? Can't be. So you sell the scarf. But once you have one candle, you have to use it for Shabbos. But you didn't have to say. Okay, it's a good. How do you pass in that case? Anyhow, so back to what we were saying. So the Ri says the fact is these days we light inside. So who's the recognition for? Who's the publicity for? The family. So the family, as long as they're up, if they're up at 2 in the morning or 11 p.m., it's fine. When you did it outside, it's for the street passerby. So then once there's no one walking around, but now that it's inside, as long as people are up. So the Ri already says in his times they're lighting b'fnim, and therefore the halacha changed about the time. So says Rav Avraham of Prague, so the same thing you could say about Mehadrin and Mehadrin. Tosfos in number 2 was explaining the Gemara. In the times of the Gemara, they lit outside. So then you had the issue of it's going to be all muddled up. The on-seer will get confused of how many people are in the house. But once you light inside, the whole thing changes. Okay. So this leads us to the following. The great debate between the Rambam and the Ramoh. What am I talking about? Maybe you noticed, but it seems, on the one hand, it seems like the Ramoh follows the Rambam, that Mehadrin, Mina Mehadrin means you need to add one every night for each person of the family. That's how the Rambam understands the Gemara, and that's how the Ramoh paskins in number 9. The Yesh Oimrim that you need Mosif Ahila for each one of the family. But if you take out a toothpick and you dissect this, you'll notice that there's a big difference between the Rambam and the Ramoh. The Rambam in number 3, in the second line says, if you're Mehadrin the mitzvah, the balabayis should light candles according to the amount of people in the house. Who's actually lighting? The balabayis.
Right.
According to the Rambam, it's the balabayis who lights. He always uses the word madlik in the singular. When there's 10 people in the house on the 8th night, the balabais lights 80 candles. His hand's going to get a little sore, 80 candles. That's what it is. But maybe if it's all around one big bowl, you just, The Ramah says in number 9 in the 3rd line, V'yesh omrim, d'chol echad mibnei abayis yadlik. Each person lights on their own. Ooh. So that's different. The Ramah says each one does it on their own. In other words, they're debating in number 1 when the Brister says that Hamehadrin do a candle for each person. Does it mean a candle on behalf of each person, but the guy lighting is the balabas, or each one does it themselves? It seems to be a debate. Now, for a long time, it wasn't picked up. For a couple hundred years after that Ramoh wrote this, we don't know of anyone, at least I don't know, of anyone picking up on this nuance. The Griz, the Velvel of Brisk, picked up on this nuance, and he has a famous Torah to explain why the Rambam and the Ramoh disagree about this. Okay? You asked about women. Taka, very strange. The Rambam writes in number 3, when the Balabayis lights, he has in mind for all the he lights on behalf of the women as well. Now that the Ramoh says the minig is each person lights, the women light their own menorah. In Sefer HaMinhagim, it says there that a wife doesn't light, she's yoytze with her husband, and it says the bonus, the girls don't light. That's what it says there. Now I know many people in the Babbage have a meaning that girls do light.
Do they have to be present?
And
Not present, you can't.
l'chayra not, no. The Gemara says that a husband, your wife can light on your behalf in your house, in your yoytze. You don't have to be present. Yeah, you can be out on. Although the Maharash, the Rishon, has a whole story that he relied on his wife, and his wife forgot to light. He said, that's it, never relying on. That was a funny thing. But, so the Rebbe has a footnote over there, and the Rebbe says, what taka? Why? By Hanukkah, men and women are equal. The Gemara says they were part of the miracle. They're equal. So if Mehadrin means that you want a candle for each person, why men and not women? So for the wife, it makes sense. It's a rule called the Ishtay Kagufa. You and your wife are one unit. You don't have 2 separate menorahs. You're one person. So the Rebbe says some people said if the mother's not lighting because she's yoytze with her husband, the daughters should light. If the mother's not lighting and the daughters light, it's it's strange, bizarre. The Rebbe says he doesn't like that. You can't forfeit away halacha because of some derech eretz. So a couple ideas are brought in that. The Rebbe says it could be that there was a time when women didn't know the brachas that you had to make. So the women b'chlal just, never took on the minig, or they stopped doing the minig of having their own menorah. They didn't know the brachas. But the Rebbe does bring from the Shiltei Gebayrim that Mehadrin and Hamehadrin is for men and women. Each person should do it themselves. It's kind of how he finishes besides your wife. Yeah, which means, in other words, the Rebbe's not so. In the Ha'ara, the Rebbe's really asking what it says in the Pnim. The fact is, if you would go like the Rambam, the Balabayis lights, you would light a candle for each of the women in the house. And once the minute came like the Ramoh, each one does it on their own, then women stopped.
He doesn't say men. The Ramoh doesn't.
Right, doesn't say that. Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. There's room to say. Yeah. So comes Reb Velvel of Brisk, and he says like this. Look at number 10. A Gemara in Shabbos, a Brister. Hamal, if someone gives someone a bris milah. When it comes to giving a bris, there's what's the orla, the foreskin. You have to cut off the foreskin, and then there's a small membrane underneath that needs to be peeled away, and that's called the priya. You have to be perei of that. But in the foreskin, The moil, let's say, cuts off most of the foreskin, and there's a little bit that remains. They're called tzitzin, strands. There's different types of strands. If there's a lot of strands, it could hold the whole mitzvah back from working. Then there are tzitzin that are less significant. So says the Brister, Hamol, when you're doing milah, calls manshu oisik, as long as you're involved in the bris. In other words, Rashi says you haven't moved away from the baby, you're still with your knife by the milah. Then chayzer, you can go back and cut whether the tzitzin hama'akvinis hamila, whether the strands that interfere with the bris, because they're a large amount, Bain, whether al tzitzin she'ein ma'akv, whether it's a small amount, and therefore it doesn't hold back. You can cut all these strands. But pirish, but once you've left the baby, and then, hey, you look back and say, wait a second, this is a job not yet completed, then al tzitzin hama'akvinis hamila chayzer, then you only go back for the tzitzin which interfere with the completion of the mitzvah, that the mitzvah can't be fulfilled. But al tzitzin she'ein ma'akvinis hamila, but the less significant tzitzin ein chayzer, you don't go back. Rashi learns this is talking about Shabbos. On Shabbos, doing a bris violates Shabbos. You're drawing blood, there's a number of prohibitions. But the Torah allows Shabbos to be pushed aside on behalf of Milah, if it's the 8th day, etc., etc. So, says Rashi, if the moil is in the middle of the bris, then you could do whatever's needed. You can take care of any strands, beautify it, no problem. Once you've removed yourself from the baby, and now you want to come back, it's like doing a new bris, it's like doing a new cutting. Says Rashi, the tzitzim which are imperative, so that's, the bris doesn't work without them, so you're allowed, but the extra strands which are not ma'akiv, you just want to remove them to mehadrin, to make it look much nicer, so that you can't do on Shabbos. That's how Rashi learns. The Rambam quotes this halacha in the laws of milah twice. Once about Shabbos, once about every day of the week. The Rambam learns this Bracha is talking about every day of the week. Once the moil has left the baby, there's no point of going back on the non-significant strands. No. So Rabbi Yosef Kaira discusses this Rambam both in his Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam and his Beis Yosef on the Tur. And Rabbi Yosef Kaira in his Beis Yosef on the Tur, he says, I don't know what's going on with this Rambam. I'm sorry, in his Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam, he says, maybe the Rambam really holds like Rashi, it's talking about Shabbos. On the other, the Rambam brings it twice. So in his Beis Yosef on the Tur, Rabbi Yosef Kaira writes very clearly, the Rambam disagrees with Rashi. The Rambam holds this law applies both during the week and on Shabbos. During the week, it's not that you're not allowed, it's just there's no point to go back. Once you've disengaged from the bris, there's no purpose to return to cut off the small strands. You're not gaining anything. Whereas on Shabbos, it would be biblically prohibited. Rashi disagrees. It's only talking about Shabbos. During the week, you go back. And by the way, what the Tur holds on the matter, the Beis Yosef and the Bach have a big debate of what the Tur holds. The Beis Yosef believes the Tur holds like Rashi. The Bach believes the Tur holds like the Rambam. There's a lot of confusion here, but what's the Ramoh's take? Look at the Ramoh number 11. The Ramoh says, the Ramoh says during the week, Imhu b'chol, if it's during the week, l'chatchila yitol kol hatzitzim hagdolim. You should go back and make sure there's no strands that remain, even if they're not ma'akiv. He quotes the Tur. He's following the Beis Yosef, who understands that the Tur follows Rashi. So the Ramoh is paskening, during the week you go back. It's only on Shabbos you can't. So says Reb Velvel of Brisk, Maizede, the Beis Halevi, Reb Velvel's the son of Reb Chaim, his father, the Beis Halevi, says, you know what the debate here? The Beis Halevi says like this, when it comes to Hiddur Mitzvah, beautifying a mitzvah, can you only beautify the mitzvah while you're fulfilling it? Or you could fulfill it and later come back and beautify it. So it says that basically that's the debate between the Rambam versus Rashi. The Rambam holds you can only beautify a mitzvah when you're fulfilling it. Once you've disengaged from the milah process, the milah's been, so if the tzitz is ma'akiv, so then you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of milah. But if it's only extra strand, insignificant, so you fulfilled the mitzvah already, what's the point of going back? Okay, you want to make the bris look nicer for the kid's own sanity. Fine, you can do that. But as far as the mitzvah of milah, you won't gain anything. You can't be mahad or beautify something once you're finished. Whereas Rashi holds that you can. You can beautify a mitzvah even after you're fulfilled. Therefore, the moil should go back.
So this implies that when you light a candle for everybody in your house, you cannot come back.
Tazoi! So the doctor here, together with the Brister Rav, says, let's take this. Let's plug it into Chanukah. The Rambam is l'shitasai. The Rambam follows his opinion. The Rambam says you can't beautify something after you fulfilled it. Right. So if the Balabayis is going to light his menorah, and then everyone else lights their own, that's like the moil after he disengages from the bris. Johnny come later, he wants to come, he can't beautify it later. But if it's the Balabayis himself, it's like when the moil's in the middle of the bris.
Actually, that's a little bit...
Let's, before you refute yourself.
No, because I was referring to the one dish outside the gate, where let's say you have 15 people, but you only had night candles available, so you go back in the house, you look for the other candles, and then you come back 20 minutes later.
So it could be looking for candles, might be you're still engaged. That could be considered engaged, because it could be pirish. It means that the moil went to get a bagel and larch by the bris, and it's like, I think I missed something.
But it cannot hold to the ones where each person has their own.
Exactly.
Because then each one is
are separate.
one shot.
Exactly. Okay, that's exactly. So exactly. So says Reb Velvel of Brisk, the Griz, Reb Yitzchak Zev. He says, let me take my Zayda's Vart and plug it in. It fits perfectly. The Rambam says the Balabais, when he's lighting his candles, so he's in the middle of the mitzvah. He's like the moil in the middle of the cutting. So then he could be mahadi. You want to add more candles. But if the Balabais is going to light his menorah, and then each one lights their own, that's being Mehadrin, beautifying after the mitzvah is complete. The Rambam says you can't do it. Rashi holds you can. And who does the Ramoh Pashkin like by the bris? Rashi. So that's why the Ramoh by us says the same thing. That's why the Ramoh says, no, each person can light their own. When the Baal Bais finishes lighting, the main bulk of the mitzvah has been fulfilled. No sweat, no problem. You can beautify a mitzvah even after the bulk was fulfilled. That is what the Brister Rav says. Now, there are a number of questions on this Brister Rav. And very quickly like this. First of all,
isn't it also the Brister Rav is saying that each person who lights is saying the bracha. So now...
Hello, what, you reading my thoughts?
Sorry.
Before you take the entire shear away, exactly, we're going to get there in just a second. No, perfect, you're hired.
You don't get enough salary in one share.
Hold, wait. Imagine by a bris you have two moilim, and one guy does the main part, and the other moil is right there with his hand, finishing off the insignificant sitzin. Is he considered a separate act? Or if he does it immediately, he's considered continuing the first moil? So there's a debate. But some want to paskin that as long as there's no time hefsek, so then the second person is continuing where the first person left off. So accordingly, so too here, by the Hanukkah menorah, the Rambam should agree that when the Balabais finishes his menorah, if the other people light immediately, what? Okay, we'll get to shliach in a minute. But if everyone finishes their menorah, not as shliach for him, but to get their own candle, if they do it immediately, then the Rambam should be okay with that. That's one shaila. Rav Asher Weiss fragt der shaila on the Brister Rav. Another big problem is the following. The bracha. Hold on a second. Over here by the Menorah, after the Baal Bayis lights, each person lights their own, makes a bracha. What about by the according to the Brister, it's meant to be identical to the bris case. What's the halacha that after the moil, if somebody to come back later and do, imagine a few days later he realizes, oh yeah, I left some of those strands. The Ramoh says in number 12, Avol, number 12, it's a Ramon in Laws of Milah. When you go back on Tzitzin HaMa'akvin, you have to go back and make the brachas. Clear, if you're going for the insignificant, which is only for the Hiddur, you don't make a bracha. The Ramah clearly says by Milah, when you go back to do the extra, which is the Hiddur element, you don't make a bracha. Yet by us, the Ramah is telling us each one should light their own menorah and make a bracha. So obviously the two aren't the same. The two aren't the same at all. How could the Ramah allow each person, if the Brisker is right, what's the Ramah explaining by Hanukkah? The Baal Bos does the Iker Mitzvah. Each one does a Hiddur. Then how could that warrant the bracha on behalf of each person who lights a menorah? The Ramah by Milah, number 12, clearly says not. More than that, there's a Rabbi Kiva Eger has a letter. Okay, we're almost done. This is actually a letter we saw a couple years ago. But there we saw the whole letter. Here's one point. Rabbi Kiva Eger wants to know if tonight, how many licht are we lighting? 5 licht. You start lighting and after 4 licht, you're like, hey, I didn't make a bracha yet. So you make a bracha on the 5th licht, you already did the main mitzvah. It's only a hiddur to light the 5th licht. That's what the tshuva is talking about. Ach le'inyan birchas lahadlik, when it comes to lahadlik, l'chayra kvar gomar mitzvasa miyad k'shehishlik ner echad. Tonight's 5 candles. The moment you light the first, you did the Iker Mitzvah. So says Rabbi Kiva Eger, you forgot to make a bracha. You chapsich before the 5th candle. You're going to make a bracha now. You fulfilled the Iker Mitzvah. Masha Moisef Haneris, the additional candles are only Hiddur Mitzvah to beautify. How could you make a bracha? Vitzivona, there's a command. There's no command. It's only a Hiddur. Then he says like this, in the 4th line of 13. But what, I'll bring you a raya that you're allowed to make a bracha on a Hiddur. From the fact that each person makes a bracha on the menorah in the same house. The ein law don't prove the shayach that it's shayach to bench on a hiddur. Da'anan mevorchin kol bnei beisa. Everyone makes a bracha, even though medina nerish beisa. Even though medina real law 1 candle, the inach everyone else is Mehadrin. So wait a second. Each person makes a bracha on their menorah, but it's only a hiddur. So then on my personal menorah, if I didn't make a bracha till I reached the 5th candle, let me make a bracha on a hiddur. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger's apples and oranges. Ze'enoi. The shiny hasam, by everyone's different menorah, kiven deritzainoi, since each person wants to be Mehadrin, they have kavana not to be yaitza with the madlik. Yeah. By Mehadrin, min Mehadrin, when I'm lighting my own menorah, it means I'm not using the Baal Bais's menorah. I'm having in mind not to fulfill, so I have a chiyav. Umamela you're chayav. And he quotes from a Magen Avraham Azoi. Mashenka, when you're lighting your own menorah of 5 candles, you're yaitz with your first candle. So if you forgot to make a bracha and you chapsich by the 5th, you're in trouble. That's Rabbi Kiva Eger's word. And he says, Mahai time, because of this I have a kasha on a Ramah. The Ramah says the minig is to be machmir by candles of Hanukkah, not to light 1 candle from another, only from the shamash. And the Magen Avraham says, why? Why? You're lighting a menorah, let me light the 5th from the 4th. Or let's say the 2nd from the 1st, because b'ner echad sagi l'chol b'nei bayis. Because since 1 candle is enough, right? 1 candle is enough. Any extra candle you want to light, you're lighting a hiddur from the Iker Mitzvah. You can't.
But you can turn it on its head.
So that's exactly what he does. Wait a second. If the second person lighting his menorah is getting his light from the first menorah, you're saying he's not allowed to, because yours is only a hiddur. Not true. Kivon the ein ritzayin, since the second guy has in mind not to be yaitz with the first, he's mechuyev medina to light. So he's lighting a real ner Chanukah from a real ner. But tzarich and godless, he doesn't understand why the Ramah says that. But the point of Kiva Eger is, once everyone lights their own menorah, it's not just a hiddur. You're actually doing the Iker Mitzvah because you have in mind not to be yaitz with the Baal Bayis. So many ask, so what is the Brister talking about? He says, what's pshat in the Ramah and the Rambam by us? All the extra candles are just a hiddur. So the Rambam says you can't make an interruption, so the Baal Bayis himself lights for everyone. And the Ramah says, no, you could do a hiddur even after the Iker Mitzvah was fulfilled. It's bechlal not a hiddur by us. Each one that lights the menorah is doing their own mitzvah, and that's why they can make a bracha. So the Rambam should agree. The Briskerov's theory is all the extra menorahs are just hiddur. So it falls back to the general question, can you beautify something after the main mitzvah was fulfilled? Everyone asks, what's going on over here? The extra menorahs is not a beautification. Then you wouldn't be able, each one can't make a bracha. The extra menorahs is each person saying, this is my mitzvah. I'm not fulfilling with the balabas. So then the Rambam should agree, each one should do that. So these are the kashas that they ask on the Briskerov. And
But getting back to the one where you forgot to say the bracha 4 candles and you say it on the fifth, you should be okay with that for a simple reason, because if you go back to the line number 2,
yes,
you have to light 1.
So how could you? Why are you
they
allowed
all
to?
They all come out, whether it's 3 or 5 or 10.
Comes the Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes says, this is unbelievable. This is what do you have? What do you have for breakfast today? This is no. So the Sfas Emes Taka wants to disagree with Rabbi Akiva Eiger. This we had a shiur on at length a year or two ago. The Sfas Emes says that once you've accepted upon yourself to light according to which night it is, so the 5th night you light 5 candles, all 5 candles become one, the extended mitzvah. It becomes one big mitzvah. So if you didn't realize that you forgot the bracha till the 5th one, you can make a bracha. That's it. So when I was in Los Angeles and was zoche to learn by the great Rav Schochet, known as the Rosh, we quoted him last week, so we're quoting he's back again. He strikes again. He strikes again. And that is, so he asked a number of these questions on the Briskerov. Could be had more questions. So he gave the following explanation about what he feels is why the Rambam and the Ramoh debate. Okay? And this, to the best of my memory, it was a long time ago. I tried locating if it's printed, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I'm just relying on my faulty memory. But he quoted a Pnei Yeshua number 15. The Pnei Yeshua says, on the Gemara in Hanukkah, Taner Rabbanon mitzvah Chanukah ner ishu beisai. It's a candle for a man in his house. We said the word beisai. What does beisai mean? Beisai usually is a euphemism for a family, a wife, kids. Says the Pnei Yeshua, he thinks beisai is literal. It's literally a chayv on the house. Near it seems to me. Man ishtana mitzvah zu mishar mitzvahs. Chanukah is different than other mitzvahs, which are chayvas haguf. You have to wear tefillin. You have to shake lulav and esrog. But everywhere else it's a chiyuv al kol yachid v'yachid. And we have a general rule, mitzvah boy yoysa mi b'shluchai. Usually we have a rule that anything you could do with a messenger, better to do it on your own. If it's a chayva on your body. Ela the shiny hacha, but here is different. She'ein hacha ikar ha-mitzvah. You know what the main mitzvah by the candles of Chanukah? The original enactment wasn't inside, it was b'samach l'shus harabim. Outside. And according to Tosfos and most people, when you have a garden, it's dafkan between the garden and the street. It's mishum prisumei nisa. It's to publicize. Mishum kach, therefore, hitilu, the rabbis place this obligation as if it's a chayvus habayis, as if it's a chayv on the house. Vadayin sarchin. He's not so sure about this. Now, when it comes to mezuzah, the Gemara in Pesachim discusses: is the mezuzah chayv on the house, or chayvus hador, the chayv of the one that lives inside the house? So to by bedikas chametz, did the Chachamim make an enactment? The house has to be cleaned for Pesach, or you have to clean the house? And the Gemara, it's a serious question. The Gemara discusses that. So too here by Ner Chanukah, is it a chayv on the house or it's a chayv on the people? The Pnei Yeshua is entertaining the svar. It's a chayv on the house, but he says, where is it expressed? It's a chayv on the house. The fact that it's done outside the house by the front door. I want every house outside the front door to have a Ner Chanukah. So when it's outside the house by the front door, it's like a chayv on the home. So Rav Schochet wanted to say like this. There are a number of things that changed after we started lighting inside. We saw a few of them before. The Ri says that the whole window frame of lighting between Shkia and the passerbys no longer walking down the street doesn't apply anymore because we kindle inside. The Mehadrin of Prague says Tosfos will all crumble. The whole argument of Tosfos will crumble nowadays that we light inside. There's more. The Gemara says you're supposed there's lighting a ner Chanukah less than 10 tefachim from the ground. In fact, that's why some people have a hiddur to have a menorah, not like a regular menorah where the candles are on top, but a menorah where the candles are on the base, and then you have a back to the menorah. When you have the candles on the base, it's much easier to have them within 80 centimeters, 10 tefachim from the ground. The Gemara mentions having it within 10 tefachim. The Gemara throws out the proof, but the Rishonim debate how we paskin. And the Mordechai comes and says, the whole inyan of less than 10 tefachim was back in the day when you lit outside. But nowadays, that you light inside, the whole din is off. And we have a number of such dinim that change now that we light inside. There was a din. The Gemara says if you have a courtyard which has a couple entrances, you need to have a menorah by each entrance. If you live on a corner block, right, and you're going to put the menorah on one side, someone walks on the other side, sees nothing. Apparently this house doesn't light, you're going to cover all your bases. But the Rabbeinu Simcha, one of the Rishonim, says, now that we light inside, you could say the same thing. Maybe every window needs a menorah, or every doorway. Says no. Once we light inside, it's not for the passerbys on the street, it's for us. Your family knows if you have a menorah. They're not going to, Tati, how come this window doesn't have? They're not going to ask that question, right? So you have many halachas that changed. So Rav Schochet wants to taina, he thinks this changed as well. The Rambam never concedes to the fact that these days we light inside. In the Rambam's world, you're lighting outside. If you're lighting outside, the Pnei Yeshua says, your candle outside the front door of the house, it's like the house needs a menorah. It's a chayv on the house. You know who fulfills the chayv of the house? The balabayas. If a house needs something, if a house requires attention, it's the balabayas who's chayv. If the house needs it, the balabayas. But nowadays we light inside, you don't see anymore that it's a chayva on the house. That's when it's outside by the front door. Every house needs to have this. Once it's inside, it's not about the house, it's about the people. Once it's about the people, then the Ramoh is right. Let me light my own menorah. Mitzvah boy, Joyous like the Pnei Yeshua mentioned. Why should my father light it for everyone? Why should I light it for everyone? Everyone should light their own. We always have a rule, better do it yourself. Only when it's outside does it become like a chayv on the house. And then the Balabais is the one. He says that's what changed. The Rambam and the Ramoh don't disagree. They're talking about different circumstances. In the Rambam, they always lit outside. In the Ramoh, we light inside. That's what changed. And he added just a detail, which I don't remember if there was a source, couldn't find it anywhere, where he says, if you light it outside the front door, the Pnei Yeshua clearly said if you light it outside, it becomes like a chayvas bayis. But he added, because then the bayis becomes like a mishkan, the menorah is the menorah, and the balabayis comes like the kohen gadol. The balabayis becomes like the kohen gadol. The house is a mishkan has a menorah, and there's someone to light the menorah.
But in the Mishkan, the menorah is inside.
The truth is, hadlaka is also ksheira bazar. But you always have one person that lights. So if you're saying that it's on the house, and the house becomes like a mishkan, this is the menorah, then it's one person that does it. There's a hiddur to have connected each person in the house, and the Rambam says to light 80 candles. But that all changed once we started lighting inside. The Pnei Yeshua clearly says when you light outside in the front of the house, then it's like a chayvas bayis. So then the balabayis takes care of the responsibilities. But once that changed, we begin to light. It's not about the house anymore, it's about the people. And the hiddur is for each one, so then why light it on my behalf? We fall back to the regular law, is that when I'm supposed to have something done, mitzvah boy, so according to this chap, it's not a debate of the Rambam and the Ramoh in essence. It just depends on where you light. Just like the Mehadrin of Prague says, Tosfos would change in how to translate Mehadrin and Mehadrin, like the Re said, Yasher Koyach.
So if you go back to Rambam, the way you originally said that you light for each person, is that don't you think that's the influence for Shabbos candles, where we have the custom of lighting for each person?
Each one lights on their own.
Not that they light, it's the mother and the daughters, but they light for the number of people in the household.
Right. So there's a big question though about If the mother does all the candles, so she makes one bracha, lights all the candles. If each one does it themselves, how are they allowed to make a bracha? The house already has light. So this is Rav Moreno, Rav Avadia Yosef gave some flack to the Rebbe when the Rebbe came out that not only every bas mitzvah girl should light, but even little girls from 3 should light and make a bracha. And Rav Avadia Yosef said, what's going on over here? But each person lighting, making a bracha, it's not so posh, especially in the Sephardic world. And by the way, the Rebbe responded by quoting the Aruch HaShulchan, who mentions this minute of other people lighting, girls love it. And as long as you're moisif, if you're adding light, you can make a bracha. But if the mother would do all the candles, you wouldn't have that issue at all.
I have a question back.
Okay, Mishakayach.